Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First announcements, checks over $25,000. First one was for GCC Contracting, which was external repairs for the I.K. Benjamin Center, aka the Rec Center. That was from the Capital Fund for $26,286.50. And the other one was from McNamee Construction, which is part of the Station Road Culvert Project, also from the Capital Fund from $79,453.74. And then the last one was for Stratagem Security, Town Hall Security project from the Capital Fund for $53,746.54. Next up, we have a public meeting on the comprehensive plan update and public hearing on the draft generic environmental impact statement scheduled for this Wednesday, March 21st, 2018 at 7 p.m. here in Village Hall. We also have a public hearing on Monday, April 2nd, 2018 at 7 p.m. in Village Hall to consider the 2018-19 operating budget. And then we're also going to have a public hearing to consider a local law amending the zoning code to permit home occupations in one-family dwellings in the business district as an accessory use. And that's also on April 2nd, 2018 at 7 p.m. in Village Hall. And for that one, I will make a motion if I can get a second. All in favor? Aye. And then the last announcement I have is that Abbott House is having an open house this coming Tuesday, March 27th at 6:30 p.m. We get a lot of questions about what's going on at Abbott House. It's pretty full now. They're doing some great work up there. And they'd really like the community to be part of it. So again, it's this Tuesday, March 27th at 6:30 p.m. at Abbott House. So
not this week.
It's 27th, right? So it's not this Tuesday. It's
right.
It's March 27th. So you have a little bit of time.
Right.
We'll try to remind you again.
Yeah.
But,
I plan to go.
I plan to go.
Yeah. Dennis, maybe. Okay.
Next up is correspondence. We had one piece of correspondence from Joel Berry. Dear Honorable Trustees, Mr. Schaffler advised me to send this directly to you. It actually didn't go to me, it just went to the trustees, so I took that literally. I now have evidence he attached that the air quality is indeed hazardous when El Cerrito is burning. I have forwarded my data to a research division of Mount Sinai Department of Medicine and Public Health, who've been helping me with this issue to assist in assessing the specific health risks. I've attached screenshots of air quality measurements taken when El Cerrito is burning, depicting AQI readings above 400, which are undeniably hazardous conditions in the surrounding neighborhood. I have data confirming that the smoke causes hazardous conditions now, so I do expect an answer from the village. Mr. Schaffler told me 5 months ago at our October 27 meeting that he'd look into the issue and respond with an explanation as to whether or not the village thinks the zoning ordinance against noxious emissions applies to wood-burning commercial establishments. If you contend that it doesn't, what is your reasoning, rationale? And then he included the section 224-36 part of the code. Respectfully, Joel Berry, 17 Main Street, apartment 1W. It's actually a fairly complicated issue, so we are all aware of it, and we're going to work our way through it, because there's obviously many sides and many issues involved, but we'll take a look at it. Next up is public comment. Anybody has any?
Hi, Ann Jaffe Holmes on First Street, and just want to give a quick reminder to the community that at the Farmers Market this coming Saturday and every Saturday that we have the Farmers Market here at Main Street School, we will be collecting food scraps as a participation in the town of Greenberg's program to take food scraps from the town and the villages and compost them. So it does, in the end, turn a waste substance into a productive, helpful substance, and it saves the village money as we take it out of the waste stream. Thanks very much.
I think you mentioned to me how much you've already collected.
Oh, yeah, good idea. The first week, 50 pounds, the second week, 150 pounds, and the third week, the last time we did it, 275 pounds.
Did you?
Yes. With help. Yeah, no, with help. We all lifted it together.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Well, one thing that might be worth mentioning, and if you want to mention that Scarsdale and Hastings, you might want to mention very quickly what they're doing.
Oh,
in reference to this?
Oh, in reference to this, yes, the Village of Scarsdale has approved to do once a week residential pickup of food scraps throughout the Village of Scarsdale. They're going to be setting that up in the next couple of months, and it will start before September 2018, that pickup, and that will be removing the food waste from their garbage stream. And the Village of Hastings is also collecting food scraps at their farmers market, and their DPW is putting toters at the farmers market and carting it over to Anthony Veteran to save the residents the trip over to Anthony Veteran. Currently, we're doing that. We volunteers for the village are carting over to Anthony Veteran when we pick up at the farmers market.
And just one other question. Typically, either in the county or nationwide, how much, if you look at the solid waste stream, how much is typically food waste?
About 17% of the average American households.
By weight?
By weight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and
That's how we pay for it, right?
exactly. That's why the measurement is so good. And also in affluent communities like ours, generally the waste is much higher. So it could be much more, 20%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Any other public comment? Otherwise, I will move on to the consent agenda. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. If there are any questions?
No.
No questions. Get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Next up, we're going to move this a little bit because I think you guys have some meetings to go to. We're at appointments to the Green Policy Task Force Committee. Just make sure I read the...
Oh, I just have one question before we go on.
Okay.
What are ceremonial guns? Sorry.
It's for Memorial Day and Veterans Day, the ones that they shoot. That
That
never,
shoot blanks.
The shoot blanks that never work. It didn't work. Like last time, out of all the salutes, I think we maybe had about 3% success rate.
So we need new guns or better ammo?
I think new guns, they had them redone, I think after last Memorial Day. They came to Veterans Day and it still didn't work.
Okay,
so.
thank you. I was just wondering about that. All right, thank you very much.
So, did you want to say anything about the appointees, or?
Sure.
Before we get too ceremonial? I guess it's not ceremonial, it's just the resolution, but.
Hi, my name is MJ Wilson, and I am the acting chair for the Green Policy Task Force of the Village of Irvington. And we had been kind of low level and low key, not we were doing things on behalf of the village and the environment, but we were kind of low key and it was simmer. And now there's been a reactivation, particularly with Anne being able to spend more time and firing us up, and we've been able to be more involved with more programs in the village and to support the board more in their environmental initiatives. And there are two citizens who have worked with us and who we thought would be great candidates to be formal members of the task force, and we submitted the names and they've been accepted. And we have a few more in the queue. So I'm really excited about the fact that there's more people interested, and some of these people are actually actively engaged in activities now, so they'll be bringing their activities, their knowledge, and they'll be partnering up with the Green Policy Task Force, and I think it's going to be a really good thing.
Great. So without further ado, resolve to appoint the following volunteer members to the Green Policy Task Force with a term to expire in December 2018. Viola Speck and Francis O'Shea. So Viola, thanks for coming tonight. And thanks for serving.
We have to
Oh,
vote.
wait a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. We have to vote.
Opposed?
And you're not.
And I wanted to let you know, Francis has met with Nina Orville today to deal with the greenhouse gas emissions study, to get her consult on that. So that's in motion to be taken care of. And Viola and I have been meeting with NJ about the recycling as well as the food scraps. So we're underway.
Great.
And the leaf blowers.
And I know Francis cornered me one day, and he spoke for a long time about how excited he was to get. I mean, I think this is his real passion. I think he has a lot of them, but it's one of his real passions.
They're all knit together.
He's one of those guys. I think he's on every committee now, which is nice.
So I've got two short comments about it. One of which is that I just want to request that you guys get together the query who's still active or not active. So
That email has gone out.
so we can update that list and get it, because it's on the website too, and there's probably names of people that don't make sense anymore or may have moved.
So
And then-
I sent an email out, and people need to reply by this following Sunday, and I will let Larry know the results of that email.
Great. And then Larry, I can update the page with the list of people. Because it's at the bottom of the GTBF page. The other thing was, we're ready to go with a leaf blower information sheet, health information and environmental information sheet. So I'm going to get that. It's been looked at by all the GPTF folks, and I'll get that to you, Larry, so we can talk it through about number of copies and all that kind of stuff. The plan is for that to go out in the monthly water bills for the next 3 months.
That's it?
That is it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we will continue a public hearing to consider a local law amending Chapter 19, defense and indemnification of the village code.
We're gonna mail everything, because there's a lot of other stuff that goes along with it, so that's okay. It's easier for us.
Thank you.
It's okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So Mary Ann, would you like to take as long as you'd like to explain the changes? So I would usually say quickly. So.
Oh, yeah, this one I can actually do quickly. This is on the defense and indemnification. Yeah, it's I don't want to say basically the same as what we had before. If you take the law, the amendment we had the last time was going to change the provisions on punitive damages. We took those changes out, so those changes aren't in there. So the only changes in here are to eliminate the language that makes the Irvington Code different from the state law provision, which is actually what binds us anyway because of the savings provision at the end that says if the state law provides more than Irvington does, then the state law should apply. And so the provision that's taken out is that in order to get defended or indemnified, as of now, the employee can't have been in violation of any rule or regulation of the village, town, county, state at the time the alleged act or omission occurred. That language is coming out on both the duty to defend and the duty to indemnify. And those are the only changes that it makes. They're actually only changes in language because that's what the law holds right now. What our law holds now because of that savings provision. It's just confusing that this provision is in here and ends up being negated at the end. So we're just taking it out. That's what this amendment would do.
Yeah, so it's basically a slightly slimmed down version of our original law that takes out the punitive damage section.
Yeah, and then because there was some, the punitive damages provision was a substantive change, where this one isn't. This is cleaning up language. We're not going forward. We didn't include the punitive damages amendment in here.
Any comment from the board?
Just to clarify, because we've been through, that, I know we were trying to reconcile two completely irreconcilable portions of the law and whatever, but as this is now written, we do have the option to defend or to consider punitive damages, correct?
Yes, in certain circumstances,
Okay.
yes.
I just wanted
Which
to make
is
sure
what we
Existing.
get right now.
Right, so it was what we have right now, so it's there, so we
Still
didn't,
there.
okay.
It's very limited circumstances. I mean, the showing that you have to make, it's pretty limited circumstances, but you do have the authority if those standards are met.
Anyone else on the board? Those will open up for public comments.
Mike Foley, President of the Irvington Police Association, and just came tonight to thank you for hearing us last week and taking a look at those changes and addressing them. And our attorney Keith Byron also sends his thanks to you. He couldn't be here tonight. He wanted to come, but he couldn't be here. So just on behalf of myself and all the members, I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity and addressing some of our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel, last shot at it. Thanks, Mike. Anyone else up here, or otherwise I'll be making a vote to close the public hearing, or making a motion to close the public hearing if I get a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now, resolve to adopt a local law amending chapter 19, defense and indemnification of the village code. I'll make a motion, if I get a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mary Ann. Thank you, Janice. Authorizing tax certiorari settlements, River House at Irvington condominium. Larry and I were talking about this a little bit. I don't think we've had a lot of these since Doc, since you've been on board, I think since you've been on board, Janice. So we thought Larry could give us the 30-second overview of our process, because, you know, we obviously know that we don't have our own assessing authority anymore, so why are we doing this? That's your cue. Larry.
That's where I come in. Okay, so,
Stage
from a Broadway person. So, yeah, as you said, the village does not have an assessment role, but there are still a number of pending items that date back to when we did have an assessment role, and also even before the revaluation most recently. So there are a number of actions that have been in play for a few years that have built up, and what we found is that the court tends to take these in an unpredictable manner. Something that has 3 or 4 years built up may not be heard, but then some matter that only has 3 years is heard, and so it's a little bit hard to predict. This one has multiple years that are pending, as you can see from the settlement. And in this case, in large part, since the action is not just against the village, but also against the town, it's the same role, of course, now. The town does have the ability to settle these on their own without any input from the village or the school, but they do routinely seek our input, and so we have our attorney Ed Lammers, who monitors these cases, takes a look to see, you know, that there's nothing that's being done that is detrimental to the village or puts us at a disadvantage in some way. And the school attorney does the same thing for them. So there's multiple eyes watching this. By the time you get to see a settlement recommendation like this, it's been vetted, you know, by multiple people along the way. So not to say that you can't say no, but that's really the reality of what's going on here. So so in this case, you have a settlement for multiple years, as the mayor mentioned before. You know, going back 7 years, and the values have been settled, not litigated, and not fought out in court. So in this case, the refund is in village taxes is $37,515. You know, from a budget standpoint, we weren't necessarily ready for this one. We were actually expecting that this one would settle next fiscal year, and then all of a sudden it popped up. So, frankly, we got an update from Ed, from our attorney,
In January.
in January, and it was no more important than the rest of them. You know what I mean? No more impending. But it's here this year, and we won't have to deal with it next year. So this amount actually is not in our budget, because we've spent our certiorari budget for this year. It was spent on mostly on the
scores.
on the small claims that Greenberg dealt with last year in the wake of their revaluation.
So the huge difference in the numbers for 217, that's because of the reassessment?
Yes.
The numbers actually kind of make sense a little bit.
Yeah, the one that means something, yeah, that's right.
So
But yes, that's the case.
I just have a question about the wording, based on what you said, or when, in the resolution, the first whereas. The second whereas, the petitioner's actions are now pending in Supreme Court. I thought you were saying that was settled.
No, this
Yes,
settles.
the terms.
There's no court.
Settles it.
Yeah.
There's no trial. What
Oh,
Lori said is there won't be a trial.
That's the wording I should have used.
Oh,
So
okay.
instead of going forward with the court proceeding,
It is pending.
Oh, it still is pending, but they don't have, okay, I get it.
they're not going to take it away until they get their
Going
check.
forward, Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Any other questions, or I get to play hook on phonics and read? All right. Whereas petitions having been filed by River House at Irvington Condominium or after petitioner challenging real property tax assessments on the Village of Irvington and the Town of Greenberg's assessment rules with respect to the subject property for the 2011 through 2017 tax years. That's property owner, the address, and the years. Whereas petitioner's actions are now pending in Supreme Court, Westchester County. And whereas the town, the village, and the petitioner have reached a mutually agreeable resolution, now therefore the village is authorized to effectuate the settlement commensurate with the following terms, and they're detailed year by year. The Village of Irvington's share of the refund is $37,515.34. I will make a motion. If I can get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Read agency intention for the Main Street and Station Road pedestrian improvements project.
So if I misspeak, Marianne, feel free to correct me, because I'm not a professor of this stuff, but basically our large project that we have to install a sidewalk on Station Road, as well as some improvements on Main Street at the intersections, is subject to a seeker review, and we are, as part of this resolution here, declaring our intent to be lead agent with respect to that environmental review. Notices will be circulated to see if anyone else wants to be lead agent. We expect that no one else will want to be. And at an upcoming meeting, you'll declare yourself lead agent and start the environmental review, which our engineers will be feeding information to you. So you can take a look at that. But this is, not that it's a simple project, but it's a sidewalk project. Not inherently a intense environmental action, except for the fact that the sidewalk is not far from Barney Brook at certain spots, so there's be some tricky things, but that's the review that you need to undergo.
I'm just curious, 12BS, if the proposed action is located in an archaeological sensitive area?
Yeah.
Which part of the project is?
You know, I don't know the specifics. I can tell you that the answer to this came from, I know you asked that question, but they responded to me, and they responded to me with details, as I recall. They queried, I believe, the State Historic Preservation Office, and the responses that they got back were such that there's kind of a broad area of archaeological possibilities, so we fall within that. This is not truly site-specific, that, you know, right where that sidewalk is going is where there's a burial ground or something, you know what I mean? So it fell within a very broad definition of an archaeological area. It's, frankly, I expect that there won't be anything that will need to be mitigated relating to that.
This cousin, the state actually is running this, and so they have these big maps and stuff, but you might have been wondering what the endangered species was.
Yeah,
That was
exactly.
my next question.
Yeah, there's two species of sturgeon that came up. Now, there happen to
That
be
may or
none.
may not be in the river, you know, there just are some in the Hudson River.
I'm surprised they didn't call out eel,
Yeah, no, they didn't.
because they swim up the freshwater
They're probably
streams.
not endangered,
Yeah, they weren't on the list of endangered.
there's a lot of eel.
I don't know.
All I used to catch in the Hudson.
I have all the paperwork to show you if you'd like to look at it.
I used to have crayfish
I know,
in
this
my
is really
stream, but
weird, I mean, these are
No more,
questions
really?
we usually answer.
I used to go crayfish hunting a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
Barney Brook.
So anyway, that's that. I expect none of it will be impacting the project.
Any other questions? All right, redraw.
Oh, sorry, a quick question about the sidewalk. Is that relating to Safe Walks to School?
It's not that type of a project, but it is in the vicinity of the Dow's Lane School. But it's not the Safe Routes to School project itself. That was a grant that we had probably 10 years ago.
Okay, this is from the comprehensive plan as a safety issue, was it? Just wondering where it's coming from, the sidewalk along that.
I mean, this segment was identified during our preparation of the grant for the Safe Routes to School grant, but that's going back 10 years. We identified this section of sidewalk as being a significant missing feature, but at the time, the funding wasn't available to really justify it. So we've been on a quest to look for funding, and sure enough, we received a almost $900,000 grant to help with it.
Hooray.
Yeah, so that's what we're working on now.
Now we just have to get all the paperwork done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's no small matter.
$900 worth of paperwork.
Yeah.
We should hopefully break even after we're done with the paperwork. Whereas the Village Board of Trustees authorized commencement of the design phase for the Main Street and Station Road pedestrian improvement project, whereas the village's consulting engineer, Creighton Manning Engineering, has advised the Village Board of Trustees that the proposed projects are an unlisted action in accordance with the rules and regulations of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and whereas the Village Board of Trustees is duly qualified to act as a lead agency for compliance with SECRA, which requires environmental review of certain actions undertaken by local governments, and in accordance with the coordinated review procedures of SECRA, the Village of Irvington's Board of Trustees wishes to be designated as a SECRA lead agency for the proposed projects. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Irvington hereby indicates its wish to be the lead agency for SECRA review of the proposed Main Street and Station Road pedestrian improvement project, and be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Irvington authorizes that and directs the Village of Irvington's administrator to send a copy of the short environmental assessment form Part 1 presented at this meeting, along with a certified copy of this resolution stating the Village Board of Trustees' intention to be declared as lead agency, to any and all communities or agencies that it is necessary to give written notice to in accordance with New York State law, including the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, New York State Department of Transportation, and New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. I'll make a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Three appointments to the Green Policy Task Force. Reports of boards, standing committees, and officers. Trustee liaison reports.
Well, we shot the wad on GPTF, but what else is interesting? The Tree Commission is meeting tomorrow night. They regularly meet first and third Tuesdays at 7:15 at the local history room in the library. And they are, of course, open to new members. And I will just leave it at that.
The IASC-CAB Executive Committee will meet on Tuesday, March 20th, 8 a.m. at the Senior Center. RPAC, Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee, will meet Wednesday, March 21st, 7 p.m. at the Rec Center. Irvington Woods Committee will meet Thursday, March 22nd, 7 p.m. at the O'Hara Nature Center. We know where Joe Archino will be for the next 3 days. Interesting and important, the Irvington Woods Committee will be holding a trail cleanup day on Saturday, April 14th. More information to follow. Please consider helping us prepare the woods for spring. There will also be guided hikes and activities scheduled for the day. A rescheduling of the Senior Citizens St. Patrick's Day luncheon will be tomorrow at noon. It was canceled early. The Irvington Summer Day Camp will start early bird registration in April. More information to follow. Staff job applications are available, so if you are interested in a summer job at the day camp, please contact Maureen DePauli with any questions. All park bathrooms are still closed, but will be opened as soon as weather allows. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Connie?
Yeah, so I'm glad that April 14th, the trail day, right, Larry, you saying?
Yes,
So my
Saturday.
grandsons will be here. I think we can
Great.
send them up there. The theater, well, they're having their monthly commission meeting tomorrow. They meet every month, the commissioners, with the director of the theater, Greg Allen. And Greg sent a few messages. There's a group, one of the partners is called Broadway Training Center, and they're doing a Westchester premiere of the musical The Hunchback of Notre Dame this weekend. And then on April 7th, they're doing a show called Robin Hitchcock. Now, the very popular film festival is, it's called As If. That's on April 14th, that night. And the Face Benefit, I think Brian knows more about this than I do, is on April 28th.
Correct.
And, you know, as an aside, interestingly, Mercy College now has interns that are working with the theater director. It's a really nice arrangement, introducing a lot of the Mercy College students to the fact that we do have a theater here, and then, in turn, giving them some good experience. So that's the theater. You heard about the farmer's market, from Ann. So that's that report. And then Greg's report on the highway department. Number 13 winter storm and number 14 winter storm he has reported on. We know there'll be number 15 coming up, but I don't need to, let's not go back over and talk about those storms. I'll just skip over the details you all remember. But they also, they have a lot of cleanup after those nor'easters, so that keeps them busy for a long time. There was also a collapsed catch basin at the corner of North Broadway and West Sunnyside Lane, and then we may have noticed some of the pothole filling. Jim Englishby, the water department, they always, they need to constantly do the reading of the water meters and winter maintenance. I'll read this part, which some of you know about. They lost power to the Mountain Road Chemical Feed Building on Wednesday, March 7th. Power was restored on Saturday, March 10th at approximately 6 p.m. There was a lot of time and effort, and Jim's expertise was greatly appreciated on that. They lost power to the Riverview Booster Station on March 7th. Power was restored on Friday, March 9th at approximately 9 p.m. And they were involved with directing the tree crews to cut and clear trees down on power lines going to the Mountain Road Chemical Feed Building. And they, of course, were assisting the DPW with snow removal. So that's my report.
And how long was the chemical treatment plant down, and were there any effects from that?
I don't know the exact day. I think it was maybe 24 hours later. They were able to get the building hardwired for a generator, and then they ran a generator for the remainder amount of time. So it meant they were going up there every 5 hours to make sure that had gas in it. It's a small generator. It was about a day's worth, and apparently this time of year that's not that big of a deal. But more than that, it becomes a bigger deal. You know what I mean? In the summer, it would have been a much bigger deal with the amount of usage that we go through. But in the winter, it wasn't as big of a problem.
If I could just say, it's so easy to forget now that the lights are back on. This was not all that long ago, and this was, many people in the village were out for many days, and I happened to stop into your office just towards the end of this, and I know the amount of time and effort that went into just trying to coordinate all of this and, get people back as quickly as possible. Thank you. And also, we had floated an idea about having warming and shelter stations, and there's not one of our facilities that's going to be perfect in every circumstance. As you mentioned, the senior center isn't good if we're talking about floods, if the river overflows, but perhaps an inventory of the possible places that can offer shelter. I mean, I know the JCC sent around an email inviting friends and family and defining friends pretty broadly to come and take showers and get warm, but what resources do we have that we can direct people to?
I think we have a lot of that identified in our hazard mitigation plan.
Okay.
The problem is that our facilities are inadequate when we talk about long-term outages. We were able to do daytime things like library and maybe a gymnasium or a senior center if that's appropriate, but there's no shower facilities, there's no anything like that. So we have to rely on others. And then there are other resources in the area, it's just how far are you willing to go? So.
Yeah, I know one of the email blasts was about the Greenberg Center, which I don't know how many people actually ended up using that, even though a lot of people were out of power.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think many of our residents ended up in hotels or with relatives. That's the feedback I got. I don't.
And all of life is a balance. Friends of ours, not in this village, but friends of ours installed a generator last year and had 6 guests.
That's right.
For the duration of the outage. Okay, you were done.
I was done.
Okay, Irvington Village Court. Total money collected and related to the state controller from 1/1 to 2/27. 27,000 plus in fines, 16,000 plus in surcharges, a little over 1,000 in civil fees, for a total of 44,700 $27,78, I'm sorry, I misspoke the first one, $27,355, for a total of $44,788.50. The vast majority of the charges, to nobody's surprise, vehicle and traffic, but there were a dozen penal law charges and a couple of civil charges in there. And I'm delighted to once again be on the list to get the fire department report. Emergency response. In February, Irvington volunteer firefighters responded to 33 calls for fire and rescue, total of 63 for 2018 so far. No major incidents, but a number of vehicle accidents at the construction zone on Sawmill Parkway. Responded to Tarrytown and Hastings for mutual aid fires. It was a very busy training month. Tuesday, February 6th, all firefighters took their required annual medical examinations performed by Partners in Safety. Tuesday, February 13th, 25 firefighters received PowerPoint presentation on advanced vehicle extraction techniques given by Dragon Rescue. That's part 1 of 3. Tuesday the 20th, 24 firefighters presented with a PowerPoint program given by Fire Inspector Gaspare using photos taken of many buildings within the village, providing firefighters knowledge of building construction, highlighting areas of concern for firefighters that might cause them a problem, create traps, or cause for rapid fire growth. Tuesday the 27th, Wednesday the 28th, part 2 and 3 of the extrication training, firefighters performed hands-on extraction techniques using vehicles donated by Brookfield Auto Wreckers. Firefighter Max Trama completed 44-hour Fire Officer 1 course, and annual maintenance and New York State inspection was performed on all apparatus. Thanks, Chief.
So before we move on to Larry, I just want to add one thing about the FACE Committee fundraiser at the Town Hall Theater, which is April 28th at 7 p.m. It's Divining Rod, which is Irvington's, one of the big Irvington bands, is going to be opening for them. But then it's Larry Campbell and Teresa Williams, who are probably best known as Larry Campbell ran the Midnight Rambles for Levon Helm up in his barn for many years. He was also the lead guitarist for Bob Dylan when he was touring, and when he still tours. And then Teresa Williams is his wife; she can sing. Larry can play the guitar, so it's a good match. But it should be a great show. 50% of the ticket is tax deductible, and there's going to be free beer from our friends at Captain Lawrence, and I believe there might also be a wine tasting before it starts. So the show is actually going to start at 8, but I think the wine tasting starts at 7. So that's all included in the ticket price. Just want to get that out there. And now we'll go to the village administrator's report.
So, certainly thank you for the kind words, but there were many people involved in dealing with all this. From the mayor on down, frankly, he earned his paycheck that week. So, but everyone stepped up and did what they needed to do, so it was good from that standpoint.
It was nice to actually say it wasn't working, to be able to be there and see how it was all. I always sensed it was being well coordinated in the background, but I think what was impressive to me was between Larry and Greg and the chief and then, other people in each department, Jim Englishby, Detective Toole and Lieutenant Morano, they've all just seen it so many times that they had a real plan. And when we got our liaison, it was very good. The coordination, I think, was very impressive, where there were about 5 major outages, including trees blocking roads, so, residents were trapped. And what I was amazed at was how well coordinated they were with, I think we had, frankly, pretty good, I think supervisor from Con Ed as well, who wasn't his first rodeo either. But the way we had care of trees here, they had a tree cutting crew. They figured out ways to get people to multiple places. It wasn't like we're going to go to the first place that's the most important. And this is kind of how I would have done it. First place that's most important, we'll send everybody there, work on that. This was like, okay, well, we have to turn off the power so we can cut the tree. There aren't going to be wires, so so it was really well planned out and strategic. It wasn't just kind of haphazard and let's hope for the best. So that was just, I want to add a little color from sitting there and not saying much, frankly, but watching.
You said plenty on Facebook, so that was good. that was helpful. But in that same vein, I just wanted to report that we did submit a preliminary damage assessment of the 2 storms to municipal property only, municipal property and resources that were used, and it exceeds $130,000. So
Submitted to where, I'm sorry?
We submitted that to Westchester County, that they're using that information to compile and send on to FEMA in the hopes that there'll be a disaster declaration, which there hasn't been yet. There's certain thresholds of damage to public property and costs for public entities that has to be achieved either Westchester or statewide. And so if little old Irvington is 130,000, I'm thinking they might get there, but we'll see. That's it.
Any further discussion about the push to hold Con Ed and more accountable for its staffing?
I've not been involved in that. That's really more on the political side of things. In other words, I know that the Board of Legislators, for example, today had them in, in front of them to.
And supposedly the Public Utility Commission is supposed to investigate the whole thing.
Right, and I mean, there's been indications from the governor on down about dissatisfaction with things. So where that goes, I'm not sure. I do know that, for example, in mid-April, Con Ed has a meeting scheduled for municipal officials. They're trying to just get one person from each community because there's going to be a lot of people there. But it's
Larry and I said we'd arm wrestle to see who gets to go.
Yeah, exactly. But it's more of a.
You know you'll send me.
But it's not but it's not a political event per se. It's a debriefing and postmortem is essentially it, and to try to understand what worked, what didn't work, and really try to be constructive about it.
I was going to say part of the problem, and this is why I hope it really, it is more than just a political issue, but the utilities have been cutting back significantly on the amount of staffing they have for emergency crews, and they've been doing these kind of out-of-state mutual aid contracts, and so it only works some of the time.
Right.
When you have like a widespread problem.
Yeah, large geographic area. Yeah.
There's just not enough, and there's not enough actual Con Ed employees.
Yeah.
So.
And Larry and I talked about it too. I mean, I think a big part of it was just their poor communication. I mean, how many residents do we get that say, I just got a phone call that said my power is on, and my power is not on, and how is it, am I on the list? And, I think if we hadn't had our liaison, we would have had to say, we're not sure. Call again, call Con Ed again. But our liaison was able to say, hey, look, here, I have the list, it's on there, it's just not on the website. The website was...
had bugs.
It was almost useless, actually.
Yeah, and I think people understood the widespread nature of it. I mean, the first storm, I think, had 70,000 people without power, and the second one had 100,000. So you kind of get it, but you just want to know that, hey, if it says Tuesday, it's not just anyone who asks gets Tuesday at 11 p.m. We get it that, it's going to be on someday, but if you kind of have some kind of better information, or even if, I think it said we don't, we due to the widespread nature of it, we don't have a restoration estimate at this time, but everyone will be back on by, it could have just been done a lot better.
It would have been better to leave the web site inaccessible.
Yeah, just have a big circle.
Yeah. We're broken.
Yeah, exactly. We're also down, but.
I mean, look, from my standpoint, I approach things in a practical way generally, and pounding a fist on a table doesn't necessarily help. So
Make you feel better, though, sometimes.
Well, maybe, yeah. There might have been a few desks that got hit the last couple of weeks, but in terms of making things better, I mean, yes, there are macro issues about staffing and crews and budgets and cutbacks and all that. But like what we did after Sandy, we went to Con Ed, and I can remember making this speech in front of the entire room full of frustrated people, saying, look, the bottom line is no matter what you do, the community, after a certain point, after a certain number of hours or maybe even days, they're going to look to us for answers because they're not getting them anywhere else. And so we are, in effect, Con Ed representatives. So you need to plan on that happening and give us the tools to act like one. We're not getting paid by you, but the reality is they're going to come to us anyway. So give us the tools we need. And they did start doing that type of thing with dashboards and other things. And and then they created the liaison program, which, to be honest with you, worked as well as we could have expected. Now, if you were a resident without power for 8 days, you probably think it didn't work, and I get that, but I think it would have been a heck of a lot worse without the liaison there. So that liaison program came from the municipal officials saying, give us the tools, send someone into our police department to work with our emergency officials and local officials to give us the resources to direct them where they need to go, because we know where they need to go. Our mayor's on Facebook and knows the residents that are yelling at him, not you, not Con Ed, but our mayor does, or other officials. So, I mean, I've been on Facebook the last 2 weeks more than probably the last 2 years. It's not something I use all the time, but I went on to look to see what was going on, because it's actually a good source of information during this type of a situation. I mean, there's no valid reason for someone to go on and tell something that's untrue about whether their power's on or not. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? There's lots of other reasons to say untrue things about other things, but not that in particular, so.
The Russians didn't get it.
So it was useful, but anyway, that's enough of that.
That's it, Larry?
That's it.
Village clerk treasurer's report.
My only bit of, news is, the budget update. I sent out an email, earlier today, that due to, basically, I calculated something twice in the spreadsheet, when it was an automatic formula, anyway. So the increase is really 1.76 that we're gonna be going to the public with. So I indicated that Larry and I have been working on some other things that we can discuss during the budget process, the public hearing. So that's really about all I have. And I go to Albany on Wednesday.
It'll be another snowstorm.
Government finance offices. That's all.
Okay, village attorney report. Public comment?
All this talk about storms it makes me think about some storm solutions. First, if you're waiting for power to get back on and nothing to do, run down to the river, because from storm surges, tons of plastic bottles, styrofoam, debris comes up from the river. And then when the river recedes again, it's all left in our park, or it's taken actually back out with the next high tide. So that was one way that we spent our time, was just running down the river to clean up. And so, Larry, if you could ask the DPW to empty the recycle bin, there's a lot more than is normal in there, so they're probably not used to it. It's completely full. Right. The other is in terms of the snow type of storm situation, and this also, Larry, reminded me with your talking about sidewalks along Station Road. There are, where there is sidewalking, there are some folks who don't generally shovel too well, and I wonder if they didn't get the memo. And so I guess I was just thought I'd make a suggestion to everyone that if you're going to be away, perhaps ask a neighbor to do it. If you're having trouble, there are the snow angels who will shovel for you. But, if you see something in your neighborhood that's not being shoveled, just be a good neighbor and do it. I've been doing that sort of thing for years, and it's sort of very much something that people may not think about, but help out and help your neighbor out to do the sidewalk. And also just in terms of public comment, to be careful about using sidewalk salt. When you shovel properly, you don't need it, and just be careful about a lot of use of it. A ton of salt is running into our rivers and stuff, and it's really becoming a problem to our landscape. I think that our village is pretty good about it with road-wise and sidewalk-wise, but Metro North is excessive. So, anything that we can do to try to curb the use of too much road salt, it's needed for our environment. So,
great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Leo. Just be with action items. I didn't have anything. I will make a motion to adjourn if I can have a second. All in favor?
Aye.